Man, this movie stirred up lots of controversy. The critics are very split on it. I think last time I checked on Rotten Tomatoes, the critic score sat at around 48%, while the audience enjoyed it considerably more. That score was around 84%. So I figured, why not give my thoughts on this incredibly divisive film, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, the third installment in the Ant-Man franchise. I saw it last week, Thursday night, when it opened on February 16th. I am a hardcore Marvel fan. I am predisposed to liking everything. Very optimistic. I'm not a hater here to tear it down at all, so keep that in mind. However, I am going to try and be very unbiased and objective in this review, which is a spoiler review. I can't really give my good thoughts on it without getting into some spoilers. So we're going to start with some more superficial thoughts, some bullet points here, and then we're going to get into my 3 major complaints about the movie and ultimately give a grade on it. So there are amazing visuals in this film, but hand in hand with that comes with lots of CGI. Although I thought all the CGI was really well done. Like, there's no part where I'm like, yeah, that doesn't look great. Like, there are bits from Marvel movies where the CGI isn't great. I think back to Black Panther 1, that final fight between Black Panther and Killmonger, that didn't look very fluid to me. This movie, there's none of that except for MODOK. I did not think MODOK looked great CGI-wise, and we'll get to that later because he is one of my 3 major complaints. Now, what I look for in movies, especially these types of movies, are rewatchable moments. When I go and rewatch a film, I don't usually have time to rewatch the entire thing, so I go back to my favorite parts. Speaking of which, for example, Captain America: The Winter Soldier has 2 amazing scenes. You have the highway fight scene, great action. Captain America discovers it's Bucky, and then Captain America's speech at the end, great music, just an all-around great scene. So that's just one example of where you go back and I could rewatch these scenes here without watching the whole movie. Infinity War and Endgame, like almost all the scenes are great, so I end up rewatching the entire movie as it is. But for example, on the flip side of that, Thor: Love and Thunder had almost none of that. Maybe Jane's death at the end, that's probably your best scene in the entirety of it. But after that, I didn't care for Thor: Love and Thunder much at all. It's enjoyable, I guess, but that is definitely one of my least favorite films. And so I've really tapered my expectations going into these things since then. I like Black Panther: Wakanda Forever quite a bit. I think that was my favorite Marvel movie last year. Not my favorite movie, Avatar: Way of Water was. But getting back to this, there are lots of epic moments that I will go back and rewatch. When this hits Disney Plus, I'll probably rewatch the whole thing, but then after that, I will, look back to, some of these more epic moments. And those typically were during the end of the movie. This is a spoiler review, so I will shout them out. The final battle when everybody's rushing to, what do they call it? Kang's stronghold city right there. I know there's like a name for it. But you have the freedom fighters and then ultimately the ants. That was a great scene, but there are some issues with that I have, and we'll get into those later. But those are some epic scenes that you'll want to rewatch. When Ant-Man stomps, you hear him stomping toward the city and he yells for Kang. Another great moment, but I don't think any of those necessarily beat out the probability field scene when they're, thousands of Ant-Men, but then they all start working together and it surprises, I think, Kang, but then MODOK makes a quote about it. He says, like, how are they doing that? But Ant-Man says, because we all want the same thing. That's a really powerful scene, and I think it might be the best scene in the movie. So there are lots of great scenes, whereas Thor: Love and Thunder had basically none. Now, I really loved Bill Murray in this movie. He's basically like Bill Murray from the beginning of Groundhog Day when he's just a dick and super arrogant. That being said, he has that charm to him, right? He's very quippy, and I just wish there was more of him in the movie. It's not a major complaint of mine, I get it, but I do wish there was more of him. I think there was room for more of him, and again, we'll get to that once we get to my 3 major complaints, but he was great in it as Krylar, Lord Krylar. Yeah, so that was awesome. I honestly really liked his inclusion in it. Just great dialogue, honestly, super well written. Now, like I said, I've tapered my expectations for these Marvel movies, but I did hope for a little bit larger tie into the rest of the MCU. Like in my ideal world, there's some sort of Avengers Kang Dynasty tie-in with the Avengers. You know, we got the tie-in with Kang and literally the Council of Kangs or the Dynasty of Kangs, but I wanted a little bit more of the Avengers tie-in. You know, like at the end of the movie, Ant-Man maybe should take Kang's threat more seriously and goes to the Avengers and says, hey, keep this on your radar. And I think it would have been perfect to include Falcon. Oh my gosh, it would have been so perfect. Falcon's your new Captain America. He's almost kind of like your default leader of the Avengers at this point because, you know, Captain America, right? And he was in the first Ant-Man. They already had that pre-established relationship. So if Scott took Kang's threat more seriously, which, you know, at the end of the movie, he is contemplating it, you know, as he's walking to the coffee shop or at dinner at the birthday party, which wasn't even really a birthday. He's clearly thinking about it, right? But they just play it all off as comedy so that when, you know, the threat actually comes to be, you know, there's that realization moment. But if he actually took it more seriously in the post-credit scene and went and like sought out Sam Wilson and told him about it, I thought that would have been super badass. Would have loved that. And I think that would have been better than just copy and pasting a moment from Loki season 2 in there. But I did like the post-credit scenes, and so that's my next point here. I did enjoy them. Of course, the Kang Dynasty, like the Council of Kangs scene was fantastic. You know, it's straight out of the comics. I think you see like, you know, several, you know, key variants of him. I don't exactly remember all the names. You know, there's the Egyptian one there, the Scarlet Centurion one, something like that. But yeah, it was good stuff. And obviously is setting up Avengers Kang Dynasty. But again, like I said, the one after that where, you know, you have Loki and Owen Wilson, it was a great wow factor. Like, no pun intended with Owen Wilson there. But when I saw that, I was like, wow, absolutely not expecting that at all. That's pretty cool. But then I was like, that's probably just copy and pasted over from Loki season 2. So it kind of softens the blow a little bit, but I guess that's kind of par for the course with these Ant-Man post-credit scenes. If we think back to the first Ant-Man, the post-credit scene featured, you know, Captain America, Sam Wilson again, and Bucky, and that scene was straight out of Captain America Civil War. And it makes sense, you know, it teases the next movie, or in this case, the next series, and it's directly related. But I think it would have been so much better if you had Sam Wilson and Scott interacting, but who knows what they have planned. Maybe we'll see something along those lines in a post-credit scene for Captain America 4 next May. And then my last kind of like superficial comment before we get into my 3 major complaints is that I understand where a lot of the criticism is coming from because the movie gets kind of messy and convoluted at the end. You have so many parties involved here. You have Kang. You have Janet, who is separated from the main bunch. You have Ant-Man the Wasp, Cassie, who's also separated. She's kind of with the Freedom Fighters. You have Jentora, who's a really cool character. I liked her and all the other Freedom Fighters. Although the guy with the holes, they played that maybe a little too much. Like, wasn't a huge fan of that joke. Maybe the first time, but then the next time, no. Anyways, and then you have all the ants, right? So Michael Douglas, Hank Pym comes back with his absolute giga army of ants. So you have all of these parties here. And, you know, obviously almost all of them are fighting against Kang. Yeah, so MODOK turns good. So you just have every angle. You have the Janet angle, you have the Cassie MODOK angle, you have the ants, you have the Freedom Fighters. So much going on. And I feel like if you kind of like took one out and strengthened another one, you could have cleared up a lot of that criticism from the critics. And I think Bill Murray could have played into that because clearly he used to fight Kang. They said that in the movie. And I really was expecting him to come back. There was a line when they were all eating together where Janet said, "You used to be like such a good man," or like, "What, you know, has happened to you? Like, what have you become?" And he goes, "Well, Kang can be very persuasive." I feel like there could have been a moment at the end there where he actually flipped, because I don't think he died right at the beginning. They weren't clear on that. Like, he was just getting tossed around by that octopus, but whatever. He didn't come back at all. Surprised about that. I think he should have come back, instead of maybe doing the whole thing with Cassie and Gentora in the jail, getting chased down by MODOK and having the whole conversation about being a dick, which I thought was super stupid. I didn't like that, to be honest with you. You have Bill Murray see Cassie's message maybe, and then realize, yeah, I used to be a good man, and then brings all of his fighters, because clearly Lord Krylar has some henchmen, and then they go and join the fight. Or you just take out the ant thing, because the ant thing was kind of just plopped in. It literally was introduced in like the second half or the second act, and then third act they all came into play. I did see that coming because, when they all got sucked down into Quantum Realm, I saw the ants going down there too, and so I was like, I'm sure those will come into play. And I didn't really care for, oh yeah, they've aged up somehow by some miracle. They lived 1,000 years already, and they've built this great civilization down here, and there's billions of them. But where? Like, we never see exactly really where that was. But because the quantum realm is just so infinite and so vast, I guess they were there, even though Kang didn't detect them. So the ant thing, I'm glad that they included ants. It's a double-edged sword for me, because ants are so integral to the Ant-Man franchise. And going into this film, I didn't think they'd play a big part. It's kind of like Louise, and Ant-Man's cronies, I guess you could say, Scott's cronies from the first two movies. We knew they weren't going to be in it. And they weren't. And I didn't really think ants would play a big part into it. So I'm glad that they did, because again, like I said, that is an integral part to the Ant-Man franchise. I mean, it's part of its identity. That being said, it was shoehorned in there, So maybe you take that out, you include ants in some other smaller way, and you have Bill Murray come back, and it just would have made the story way tighter and felt, like everything actually had more of a meaning to it. So yeah, those are like just kind of my superficial thoughts on it. Now getting into my three major complaints. The first one being MODOK. A lot of people share this, although to a way larger extent than me. I actually like that they made it Yellow Jacket. That actually makes a lot of sense to me. I'm very happy that they did that. However, the CGI did not look good when he had his mask off. I thought the aspect ratio looked off, right? It didn't look like it fit in his little box well enough. When he had the mask on, it looked good. The rest of the CGI around him, with all of his weapons, looked pretty good, and the light pink saws and lasers and all that stuff, that looked good. Excuse me. But other than that, though, definitely would have written him a little bit better. I mean, the fact that he flips on the dime just by saying, I just don't believe that Darren Cross would have acted this way. However, I do think you could have made it believable that he turned against Kang in this movie, just not the way they did it. He fights with Cassie, he's trying to kill Cassie again. It's kind of a nice moment, tried to kill her when she was 6, and now trying to kill her when she's 17 or whatever age she is or was. But then, she's like, just don't be a dick. And he's like, what? Tell me what I should be. Tell me what I should be. No, Darren Cross does not look to a teenage girl to tell him what to be. I don't know. Sorry, guys. I just don't believe he'd do that. What I would have believed is that, so he's down there in the quantum realm for the last, maybe 10 years or so. Meets Kang rebuilds him, but basically says, okay, I'm going to give you life, rebuild you, but you're my slave now. You're my weapon, right? Obviously. And we saw earlier on in the film that when he interjected, as Kang was talking to Scott and Cassie in their cells, he was like, do not interrupt me, and flung him up against the wall. So that laid the groundwork for a little bit of animosity he would have toward Kang, but also they didn't play into this, or maybe you could just infer it, but so he's down there in this completely foreign environment, probably scared shitless, right? So when you have 4 characters, Cassie, Scott, Hope, and Hank, come down to the quantum realm, even though they obviously ended off on horrible terms. Those people are way more familiar to him. They represent a tether to the real world, which I'm sure he really dearly misses. So it's natural for him to gravitate toward those people. I mean, he was the protege to Hank. I mean, he dated Hope. So it makes sense that he would still have kind of some lingering feelings of, bondage toward them, even though he ultimately wanted to kill them all. But they didn't really go that route. They just had a quick conversation with Cassie, and he flipped on the dime and then sacrificed himself with Kang, which I didn't really understand what was going on. Like, how did half of his face get stuck in Kang's sphere, his little semi-sphere there? I don't know. I couldn't really tell what all happened right there. I mean, there was so many ants, kind of hard to see. There was a little shaky cam in this movie, which I wasn't a huge fan of. Anyways, that's my complaint on MODOK. When he had his mask off, it didn't look great. Now, let's comment real quick. The MCU has a mask/helmet problem because they all act like the same way. When his mask went on and off, the mask just seemed to disappear into nothingness. It's not like it unfurled up into a cavity somewhere. It just kind of gone. And the same thing is honestly with Ant-Man too. His helmet just gone. Now, I'm not sure if the technology enlarges the helmet as it comes over his head. I don't know how that works, but so many of Marvel characters' helmets these days just grow. They just grow onto the character, whether it be Jane Foster's Thor's helmet, which Thor's helmet, we've never seen him grow one, but Jane Foster can do that. Obviously all of Iron Man's tech, I mean, that makes sense toward the end of it there with the nanotech. But of course, you have Black Panther, all of their helmets just grow. You have the Midnight Angels with Denai Guerrera, Okoye, her helmet just grows onto her. You have the Lashana Lynch, Captain America, and Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, her helmet or face piece just kind of grows around her. There are so many characters whose helmets just grow out of nothing. And I know it's magic and super advanced technology, but it did not look good on MODOK, and I don't like that they just use that for everything. I can't have somebody have just a real helmet that they have to carry around or something. I don't know. That's what I liked about Captain America's helmet. Anyways, that's just a super long tangent, not really related to this. Anyways, the ending of the film is a major complaint. I like this movie. That being said, I would have given it an entirely different ending. So once they beat Kang, which we'll get to, that's my third major complaint. But once they beat Kang, I'm like, well, damn. Ant-Man the Wasp, we're going to be stuck in the quantum realm. Nope. Cassie just goes over to the computer, bing, 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 bing. Oh, portal opens, walk through the portal. They're all good. And it's like Ant-Man the Wasp were expecting it because they're looking off toward the vastness of the quantum realm off Kang's platform. And he's just like, let's go home. How did he even know that the portal had already opened? If you really watch this scene, and maybe I'll have to rewatch it, but it's like he knew that there was no peril. It's like he was going home regardless of whether that portal opened or not. And it felt very, very disingenuous because they're rushing to get into this portal. Obviously Ant-Man's trying to keep Kang from getting into the portal, but I mean, there's this whole battle here. Who's going to get into the portal first? Stop the other one from getting into the portal. But it ultimately didn't mean a whole lot because Cassie was just able to open up a whole new portal, and that was that. To me, I thought that the portal was going to close within a couple seconds, and so that's why there was a lot of pressure and stakes in this fight. So I didn't care for that, I think, and this just directly segues into my third major complaint. Everyone is complimenting Jonathan Majors as Kang, and yes, he was phenomenal, super menacing, lots of great dialogue from him, but is he much of a threat, or was this variant, just much of a threat? They made him out to be one, and people are saying that he fulfilled this. I'm not convinced of this. First off, he was defeated by Ant-Man and the Wasp. Let's let that sink in. Ant-Man and the Wasp. These are not high level Avengers like Captain Marvel or even like Shang-Chi, you know? I don't know it. Some people are saying that Ant-Man, like, he shouldn't have been the guy to deal with Kang. I mean, he is the guy to be in the quantum realm, but is he the guy to have to deal with Kang? I'm not sure. There probably could have been another character that could have fended him off a little bit more realistically. Kang should have killed one of the main characters, and my complaint would have gone away. The threat would have then been solidified, and it would have been long lasting. It would have been permanent. You would always remember, oh yeah, this character is gone because of Kang. And then moving forward, you actually respect him and respect the threat of more Kangs because he had done this. Now, going into the movie, I thought you had the potential for the Wasp getting killed or Hank getting killed, just because Hank, you know, he's been the mentor for the last 3 movies. It just made the most sense to kill him off. The Wasp, maybe kill her off because there is some drama around Evangeline Lilly. I don't even know about that, but maybe kill her off, bring in Ant-Man's daughter now as the permanent Wasp. And then while I was watching the movie, I was thinking, well, Janet really should be the one to die, even though they just brought her in the last movie and kill her off already. I think she was definitely the appropriate one to be killed because, well, Kang had imprisoned her, you know, he got her, captured her, and probably has the most disdain toward Janet because Janet was the one that had imprisoned him there and trapped him there for the last how many years, right? So he probably hates her the most, and he should have killed her. He should have done something that resulted in her death. I don't know. And then when he was fighting Ant-Man and Ant-Man was getting his ass whooped, honestly, I thought that he was going to kill Ant-Man. You know, there was a part of me, and it was well done in the sense that I actually felt that Ant-Man could die, and I was getting a little worried because I really didn't want Ant-Man to die. But somebody did need to die, I think, here, and I think it really should have been either Hank or Janet, but, you know, within the circumstance of the movie, it should have been Janet. And then you would have respected Kang because Ant-Man's walking down the sidewalk the next day like, oh, everything's okay. I'm sure it'll be fine because he doesn't care. He doesn't respect Kang's threat. And so Janet dies. Ant-Man respects Kang's threat. He goes to Sam Wilson, the post-credit scene. See, oh my gosh. Come on, Marvel. Hire me. Give me the reins. That's how I would have done this movie. He's just got to do something for you to respect the threat of him. I didn't, you know, obviously when the Avengers face off against the other Kangs, I'm sure they'll be more powerful and obviously, you know, powerful due to their numbers as well. There's so many of them. But yeah, I wasn't getting the threatening nature and the doom that he would impose. I don't know. That's kind of what I thought about. That being said, I really did enjoy this movie. Like, it's a fun time at the theater. You're going to, you know, I laughed sometimes. I'm not a big laugher, but I did smile, like, especially during the Bill Murray scenes. There's some good scenes in here that'll make you laugh. Great action, good CGI. Just don't really look at MODOK when he has his mask off and you'll be okay. Like, truly do not. And so I give this movie a solid 6.5 out of 10. It's pretty good. You know, I think, you know, I would have given Wakanda Forever like 8.25 out of 10, just for some context there. Avatar Way of Water for me is like a 9.8 out of 10. Absolutely adore that movie. A little bit long in the beginning, or the middle rather. That kind of dragged out a little bit. Otherwise, it would be a perfect for me. So yeah, guys, thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I would recommend this film. You know, at the end of the day, there's not much in theaters right now. You want to have a good time, date night, whatever it may be, taking the kids out. This is going to be, you know, a success. Especially, you know, if you've seen the other Ant-Man movies, you know, it's certainly different from the other ones, but you're still going to like same characters and all that stuff. And it's great to see Scott Lang and his relationship with Cassie evolve and grow to where it is now. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this review, and I will see you guys soon for another video. Bye now.